And now you know what they are doing for me this coming week. It's extraordinary. Paul Biss was a former student of mine, and he's now on the faculty here. For 2 years, he has single-handedly, and with the cooperation of the School of Music, created this wonderful evening they're going to have for me. And students of mine are coming from all over the United States for this one evening. Canada, France, and one former student is coming from Australia. Can you imagine? And I don't know who they all are. It's a surprise to me, you see. But I'll see them all on the 29th. And the WFIU and the television, TU, what is it, television? Anyway, the Bloomington television, are broadcasting simultaneously the entire concert live
From the Mac.
from the Mac. And the first time in 12 years that anything has been broadcast directly from the Musical Arts Center.
That's what Mr. Alexander said. Your public relations.
Yeah. And now I'd like to pay tribute to my dean, who is a wonderful man, and a great administrator, an excellent musician, and a marvelous human being. He made, Dean Bain before him and Charles Webb, made my life so pleasant, and they couldn't do enough for me. And I appreciate it all. I don't feel it's coming to anybody. And I have a wonderful class, and I've had some wonderful students. This concert, by the way, the program will comprise the Vivaldi Concerto for 4 violins, and they will be played by concertmasters from St. Louis, San Francisco, Montreal, and Baltimore. Former students are now. And then the Bach Double Concerto with 2 of my former students, concertmaster in Utah and the other one is in Atlanta. So there are 6 concertmasters of major orchestras that are going to take part in this. And Miriam Fried is playing, and so is Yuval Yaron, who is on our faculty now.
I bet they're all practicing too.
Oh, you know, it was so difficult. Probably I'd never asked Paul. But, by the way, their names are Herbert Greenberg from Baltimore, Richard Roberts from Montreal, Raymond Kobler from San Francisco, and Jacques Israelevich from St. Louis. The gentlemen who are playing the Bach are Andres Cardenas from Utah Symphony, and William Prusel, concertmaster of Atlanta. And it must have been some doings to get them together here.
Yeah,
because they all had to get permission, you know, to leave their orchestras for 2 or 3 days. And I know Herbert Greenberg, for instance, is playing Tchaikovsky Concerto on the Sunday afternoon, and he's flying in right after the concert for rehearsals. Kobler is playing a concert on Sunday night with a repeat on Tuesday. So he's flying in the first plane out of San Francisco in the Monday morning, playing that evening, has to return, taking a 6 o'clock flight or something, to get to be back in time for his duties. And Andres Cardenas is soloist, is playing the Dvorak Concerto. I think that also on a Sunday night. And so they're coming from all over. And of course Miriam Fried is the wife of Paul Biss. She's a marvelous violinist. And Yuval Yaron, also magnificent player. Yaron is playing Mendelssohn Concerto. And Miriam Fried is playing the Gesangsszene. Spohr, right. Good. I know. I'm so glad you know it.
A minor.
That's right. Opus 47.
Yeah.
What else? Opus 47.
Kreutzer.
Right. Sibelius Concerto. Schoenberg Fantasy.
No, that
It's a marvelous piece.
Yeah.
Last work. Schoenberg Fantasy and Spohr Gesangsszene. But you know, this is not the right interview, but the Schoenberg had a horror of the number 13. He was superstitious, terrible. So in the
12
fantasy,
must have been okay.
yeah, because they're 12 to, yeah. Well, he marks his bar numbers. 10, 11, 12, 12A, 14. He wouldn't go into a taxi cab with a number 85, I think 5 and 8 or 13. If somebody lived, a friend of his lived in some other city who happened to have 1325 as their address, he wouldn't go in there. But you know, the irony of it all, he was born on the 13th, and he died on the 13th. And that's scary. It's like the Friday night Dracula movie on television.
Yeah, makes you think.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much more you would like to know. You can then continue talking. I'm enjoying it. It's nice.
Sure. You've mentioned some of the people that you've enjoyed working with. Sal being maybe.
Well, he had a great influence on me.
Who were some of the others?
He was a great teacher, and I learned a lot about teaching from George Sal.
Oh, I know. How about Leopold Auer?
No. I studied with an assistant of Auer.
Oh.
I had played for Professor Auer 3 times. Now, you have 3 so-called lessons. You're not a student of the man. There were many that would take 1 lesson. And just to have that in their biography for business reasons, I'm not that way. And though he showed me a few wonderful things.
And Toscanini, what were some of the specific things about the way he worked with the orchestra that you appreciated or that you learned?
Well, Jeff, let me tell you, Toscanini, I think his wonderful influence for a long time, that was his respect of the printed score. To him, an andante was not an adagio, an allegretto was not an andante con moto. You see, it was like a Bible to him, the score, no matter what composer it was. And his devotion to his task by trying to recreate musical truth was one of the most endearing features of this man's greatness, and the power of concentration that he imbued on the orchestra, let us say, for a rehearsal time of 2 hours or 2.5 hours. You forgot all your problems outside of the orchestra, and you just worked with him to create what he thought, what he considered great music making. And I think this was one of the features. The other ones, in spite of all his tantrums and working with the orchestra and really created a lot of tension, because it could be just one instrument that didn't play equally or didn't have enough sense to bring out the theme, that he would just throw a fit, and the screaming and yelling that went on. It was tense, I must say. But you get used to it. First of all, Toscanini was a Latin, and he was a warm Latin. And sometimes, even when they were discussing a menu for dinner, they scream and gesticulate and all that, and mean nothing by it. And also, I think there were times when he could not express himself very well in English. You see,
he was
frustrated. Could be, I don't know. Although in the final analysis, I've seen some miracles with this man. I remember once, I don't know whether it was a Beethoven or Brahms symphony, where he took all the inner voices along and worked so much, so hard with them, and then put it all together. And it sounded like a melodic, complete work, like a complete entity. And then you put it together with the rest of the orchestra. My God, you heard the clarity was so marvelous. Cell too, same way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a most inspiring time of my life. And let me see, you know, he was terribly myopic. Oh, he couldn't see. I mean, his eyes would open up like that. And he didn't wear glasses at all in those days. I don't think he ever wore them. He was too vain. Very handsome man. And he, I suppose, refused to wear glasses. But let me tell you something interesting. We had once a rehearsal, and the harpist, for reason of broadcasting, would sit next to the outside of the fourth desk of the first violins.
Oh,
you see?
For the radio.
Yeah, because they found it there that could pick up that way.
Yeah.
Well, it happened one day that our harpist somehow mixed up his schedule and did not come to the rehearsal. Well, Toscanini was understanding. You know, the fourth desk isn't any further than from here to the door there. And so he started to conduct everything by memory, and then arpa. Nobody played. He turned to an empty chair and an instrument harp. He says, Caro, please, count your bars. No. All right, ancora. Nobody talked to Toscanini. No one would dare talk, you know, we all sat there. No. He said, allora, now, 1, 2, and now, and he turned, why are you so stupid? And finally, the boy started to pass word to Mishakov, who was concertmaster. And he began screaming and looking that way. Finally, Mishakov said, Maestro, excuse me, his harpist is not here. Oh, where is he? It was mild as could be. He said, I don't know, maybe he got mixed up. All right, we'll rehearse something else.
So no problem.
No, he couldn't see. Once we played something, a contemporary piece, which he wanted to try. And he came fully prepared and conducted by memory. And suddenly we hit a dissonance, but we had to look on the fingerboard to see what note we were playing. And Toscanini stops. A terza corno, third horn. D natural. I don't hear you. The man had been cleaning his horn and couldn't get it up in time to play. And he was fantastic. And you know, something disturbing. I read the biography by Volkov of Shostakovich. And Shostakovich writes so badly about Toscanini's performance of the Leningrad Symphony, the first performance in the United States. Well, I was in the orchestra that time. Let me tell you, we didn't get the parts that were on microfilm, right, until 1 week before it was announced. Toscanini took a carte blanche because of the excitement during the war, and we were all Russian allied and all that. Sight unseen, he said he would conduct this because he was so anti-fascist, you know, so anti-Nazi. He hated them. And anyway, his score came at the same time. Well, all right, Shostakovich, yeah. Toscanini came to the rehearsal completely memorized a 73-minute work. We played it through, and they had mimeographed microfilm, rather, the parts used by the orchestra in Russia. And dear maestro, after the first movement, he said, okay, now, by memory, 5 bars before number 12, first trumpet, you played what? He said D. No, it's B flat. He found about 20 mistakes, note mistakes, in this contemporary work, which was already played maybe 25 performances under Shostakovich's own direction. Now, Shostakovich speaks so badly about Toscanini in this. It was a magnificent performance.
Was Shostakovich there? Did he hear it?
No, it was during the war.
So how, would he have known I heard it?
Afterwards he got the recording.
I see.
And he said Toscanini wrote to him asking what he thought of his recordings. I never even answered him. I thought it was awful, it was bad. First of all, I doubt whether Toscanini wrote to him. He couldn't have cared less. Had the composer been there, he would have asked him what he thought, how the tempi were. We have seen that at our rehearsals. We played works by different composers. They were there. Toscanini tried to do everything they asked. You see, I don't think Toscanini wrote to him. And then, as much as I liked the book because it had some fascinating things regarding life in Russia and the political aspect of it all, and what he had to go through. And okay, but I was so unhappy to see that because I was there, and that performance was thrilling. It was just thrilling. Let me see, what else? Toscanini. You know, nobody ever bothered him. We were asked to please leave him alone and not try to yak or talk with him or anything. And we respected it. Everybody stayed away from him, unless sometimes he'd ask a man to come and see him about some musical matter, and that was it. Now, in the meantime, my last year with the orchestra, I signed a contract to go to Detroit as concertmaster. And there was a tiny item in the Sunday Times. Josef Gingold, who has just been named concertmaster of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, beginning October or something. I never thought Toscanini even knew who I was. I never had spoken to him in 7 years. I didn't think he even knew my name, certainly. We played a concert that same Sunday when the item appeared in the Times. Mm-hmm. The old man read it. Can you imagine? He found it somewhere. The concert is over and Samuel Shotznoff said, Joe, the old man wants to see you. Oh, God. My heart was in my boots. I recapitulated the entire program. I couldn't remember having spoiled anything. Mm-hmm. I didn't even associate anything with this little one-liner in the New York Times. There was a big line. I had to wait. All the people he was receiving people in the green room. Finally, I stood there and my heart started to beat like that, you know. And my turn came. And as I told you how myopic he was, well, he practically rubbed noses looking at me. And said, Carl, you don't like Maestro? And I said, Maestro, I still didn't know what he was talking about. Maestro, I adore you. Then why you leave? It's a good orchestra here. I'm good maestro. Why you go as a maestro? I've always had ambition to be concertmaster. You cannot start with an orchestra like NBC. Very seldom is there an opening. I auditioned for this and I got this position. I hear maestro in Detroit, no good, eh? I said, Master, I really don't know his work. Why you leave? Well, I said, well. Then he invited me to come to his house in Riverdale.
Riverdale, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're married, you have a little bambino. Someone must have told him. Mm-hmm. My boy was four years old. He said, come with your family Tuesday. His day off, he knew when my day off was. It was remarkable. Well, we came there, but we had a problem. My little boy, my son, was not a good eater. So we had to tell him stories and then shove something down his throat while I said, you know, there was a man who went, bah! And he reacted. Damn, went this way. Well, I used to do an imitation of Toscanini for him, and he loved that more than anything. Yes, signore, no good. And he loved that. Well, I got frightened about taking him because I thought he would see the original and start laughing. Toscanini had no sense of humor. Well, we discussed it, my wife and I said, listen here, let's take a chance. You know, someday George will be a grandfather, and he'll be 75. I'll say, you know, I shook hands with Toscanini. I said, that's worth it. I love the old man so much. But we took him, and the minute we walked in, Toscanini grabbed him, you know, and looked right into his face, and those enormous black eyes frightened my boy so he shut up like a clam. He didn't say a word. But we had a marvelous visit. There's a big account on it, on 18 pages.
In a collection of, it's a book about Toscanini.
Yeah, Hagen.
Yes, Bernard Hagen.
Well, I wrote all that, so I'm simply repeating myself.
Yeah.
I also have 4 former students who are concertmaster in Europe. One is concertmaster of the Swiss Roman, another one in the Munich Philharmonic, another one in the Stuttgart Chamber Orchestra. One more, just a second, in Switzerland, besides the Swiss Roman, in one of the chamber orchestras in Switzerland. So, and that's one thing. Then I've had all these boys that are playing are all performer certificate material, and they all got, they all got performer certificate here. And then Yuval Yaron, as you know, he won the Sibelius competition one year. Miriam Fried won the international competition in Brussels, the first woman ever to win first prize. And of the former students that are coming, well, is someone I taught when he was 11 years old. That's Jaime Laredo.
Oh, yeah.
He's coming on Monday. Yeah, well, he also won the Queen Elizabeth competition, but I taught him for 2 years when he was a little boy. And he was quite a remarkable kid. And then I sent him, this was in Cleveland, and I sent him to the Curtis Institute because he needed a great school to be with me studying with Galamian. Now, I must tell you, I said highlight of my life has been 30 years of teaching at the Meadoman School. That's very important, you know. And I was professor of chamber music there. I didn't teach the violin. I taught only chamber music. And Galamian was his school, and I'm still teaching there in the summer. Now I usually teach only about 2-3 weeks, that's all. But I used to go there for 2 months. And you know, in my chamber music classes, you just name any violinist. And I've had them in chamber music classes. Of course, what they came for was to study with Galamian, who was the greatest violin teacher of the century, as far as I'm concerned. And in these classes, I had Perlman, Zuckerman, Lynn Harrell, Arnold Steinhardt. I can begin to, the list would be running to hundreds. Sergio Luca, let me see who else. Jaime Laredo was studying with Galamian then, and Yongo Kim. Well, I'm not going to go into detail, but this was a great highlight of my life. If you make that, please, Meadowmount School, please.
Okay. What about in teaching, when someone comes to you, as has happened hundreds of times, a student comes to you and wants to study, what are you looking for?
What I look for in a student is what I look for in a performer of stature as well. Innate talent. Was this person born to play the violin, or will this be just another good fiddler? Well, I've had both. You know, in the school I have a large class. Now, not everybody is a genius. I've come across 2 or 3, 4, all these other kids, they were just great. I also have students who are of good but not great talent. Now they have a right to study to begin with. They also, some of them have done excellently in the profession as teachers, as symphony players, maybe not up front, but they have a living, you see. Now, there are times when, regarding these students, I work with them perhaps even with more, sometimes let's call it effort, to bring out the best in them. You know, they may not be of the highest quality, but as I said, they will do well. You know, they need me more than those of greater talent. And this is a state university, and I never was snobbish about someone who didn't quite, I think, would make a concert career ridiculous. No, I teach them as well, and it's kept me very good keel, you know, as far as doing everything I can. And I have a tremendous class, and I have even now, can you imagine, 75, I'm still teaching 35 hours a week. And I try to practice. I'm playing with Kinky Zuckerman next week, the Bach Double Concerto with the St. Paul Orchestra. And it's been a good life. It's been a marvelous life.
Yeah.
No complaints.
No regrets?
No. I would do it all over again. Every time you pick up a violin, you know, that the fingerboard looks at you and says, I dare you. It's always the first time.
You get a little nervous, maybe? Or?
Well, look, no, not to the extent that I can perform.
Yeah.
But a concert is not an everyday event. If you don't feel a little tension, a little something, maybe you don't even play as well. Yeah. You must have a feeling, well, this is something, and not that I'm on trial or anything. I have been. Oh, sure, and how? Been on trial many times.
You know what your students are going to face, don't you? Because
oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
You've been through it yourself, and putting in an orchestra, auditions, all these terrifying things that...
And let me tell you, I'll speak to you very frankly. Well, when the orchestral picture has changed radically since I left Cleveland, let's say, and today it is not the conductor who makes his own decision. There are committees who listen to the auditions of respective members of the orchestra. And another thing, in 1960 or so, there was a dearth of string players. And somehow, in a period of 10 years, it just mushroomed. And not only that, is the string playing is so extraordinary today, from a technical point of view, certainly, that for every vacancy in an orchestra, there are from 100 to 150 instrumentalists for one place, mind you. Now, cellists used to be very rare to find a good cellist. Today, they play marvelously. And the level is so risen that one orchestra I know of had one cello opening and 110 people showed up. You know, that means airfare for themselves and half fare for the cello from all over the United States for one position. Well, now they have auditions committees, as I said to you, and there are, I think the conductor also takes part in that, but now that we have so many wonderful players, all the so-called dead wood of the past has been weeded out. We always had in every orchestra a certain small segment of what we call the routineers who knew the repertoire and knew when to keep still when they had to play. But it doesn't exist anymore. Hey, you take a second violin section of Cleveland or Boston or Philadelphia, you have a bunch of virtuosi playing, you know. Then the financial situation today for orchestra players is a much healthier one than it was in my day. For instance, in Detroit, the season was 24 weeks. In Cleveland, when I first came there, was 27 or 28 weeks. And after that, some of the men had to work as taxi drivers, working in department stores, anything they could find. But their idealism remained. They were musicians. And then after a certain period, I think in the mid-50s even, it began, and there were summer seasons in New York, in Philadelphia, in Detroit, in Cleveland, the Blossom Festival, so that orchestras are now playing a 52-week season, 48 or 46 actual playing, and the other vacation with pay. Well, it's become a very good profession. Now, how to break in? That is the problem. Well, somehow something will work out. I don't know what. I don't have an answer. But it is critical for the player at the moment